Hey Gearfacts friends, Kaossilators. I absolutely love them, and I wanted to show you the oldest version versus the newest version, how much they've changed in design and sound and capabilities generally. Let's turn them on. I think the first and most important difference, I guess, is that this one contains a speaker and this one does not. So you will need some kind of amplifier, like a little Bluetooth speaker or something like that, to get some sound out of it. So I'll turn that on as well. And the old Kaossilator starts us off with this beautifully lush synth sound. I'm sure many people who picked one of these up in a shop and tried it for the first time were just blown away by that initial sound. Through headphones, it's every bit as amazing as a full-size synthesizer. The newer version starts off with wide distortion lead, which is a bit more in your face, but it does contain a lot of the sounds from the original as well. And obviously by now you would have noticed the difference in the screens. The original version can be a little bit cryptic when it comes to forming your loops using the controls here. The new screen is much more informative. Both of them have excellent arpeggio controls. The arpeggio button is here on this one. You hold it down, slide through, and it actually maps out how your arpeggio is going to look. So if you imagine the width of the screen as being a bar, that's how the arpeggio will sound out. The original one has an arpeggio button down here, and you can see that G is short for arpeggio, so you can go through with your dial and choose what you want. You don't get any map about what it's going to sound like, but you can audition them by going back into the main mode and then switching it again so that the light comes on. It's not super intuitive, but it doesn't take long to get the hang of it. Clearly this one is, like I said, more informative. I'm just going to flick through the sounds on here and try to find the sound that matches the original. And there it is. So that's coming through the tiny speaker on the back of this one. This one has the benefit of the little JBL speaker there, but I'll turn this to maximum. It is on maximum. So really, you need to be in a quiet room to hear that. If you're at a train station or something, you'll have no hope. I think the speaker's a nice addition, but you're going to be on headphones most of the time when you're using both of these. Now, continuing on through the sounds, we'll see that the original version has 100 and this one has 150. It's quite a big leap in the number of sounds available. This one can also loop through 2 bars, whereas this one can only loop through 1, but there are tricky ways around that, like cutting your tempo in half. And I guess this raises a point that the more simplistic instruments often force you to be a little bit more creative with your thinking, and that's another thing I like about the original. It sounds exceptional, and the limitations I think are just right. I like the mental stimulation that that gives you, but there is no doubt that the newer version, the Kaossilator 2S, is a much more complete instrument because you can actually record digital audio as well. It's got a microphone right here and it will record just like a dictaphone, or you can even plug in an external microphone and it'll go ahead and record that too. You can also save and reproduce any music that you make through its internal synthesizer as a WAV file on a card that you can store inside. A little bit tricky to get the backs off these ones, but you can put a micro SD card in there and have all the space that you need. Have all the space that you need to effectively record entire compositions. This one can't do anywhere near as much on board as the 2S. Okay, so just a bit of a comparative visual tour now. RCA's out for your PA system or speaker or whatever. Power in there, 4.5 volt adapter will do it. It takes 4 AA batteries instead of 2 in this one, as we just saw a moment ago. I actually kind of like that because obviously 4 is going to give you a lot more longevity. Down here we've got volume. I like the fact that it's an actual roller volume control. I would rather have that than the plus minus option on the 2S, which is a little slower to operate. I love the instantaneous nature of a roller, and incidentally I wish laptops still came with these because I hate having to click on the volume button just to change my volume slightly. On off switch is just a slider there, nothing on this side, the headphone out socket there. The 2S is equally simplistic but different. So headphone socket in the middle there, microphone in there, and then the same 4.5 volt DC in. We do have the socket for the SD card inside as shown just a moment ago, and the only other input is the microphone socket, which is here. Sorry, I was upside down there. And the other thing I want to point out about physical differences, this one looks a little more dated, I guess. This one has a casing on it though that I find very unpleasant to touch, and I don't know, I guess it comes down to personal preference. It's meant to be grippy and have a little bit of friction in it, and I guess it does fit very well in the hand, but I don't know, every time I pick this thing up I just sort of think, ugh. Whereas this one, I don't know, feels a bit more like an instrument to me. Again, it's personal preference, guys, but it is something that I wanted to mention because it's always kind of irked me about the Kaossilator 2S. And if you are getting the vibe that I'm kind of expressing a general preference for the original, then you're correct. I do prefer the original. As I've said, I do like limitations in instruments, and I think the balance between capability and limitation is excellent in these ones. A little bit philosophical there, but that's the way I roll. This one is a more complete package, yes, and I think a lot of people are looking for that, and I respect that approach to music as well. Ergonomically, yeah, I think this one has the advantage, because while I don't like the coated surface, I think plenty of people will actually either not care or quite like it. The final thing I'd mention, I guess, is that I love the color choices on the original, much better than the newer one, which only comes in this kind of cloudy grey. There was also a Kaossilator 2 which came in yellow. I think there was a limited edition pearl colour too, which was quite nice, but this one I've only seen in the grey. So there have been several incarnations of the Kaossilator. There are models in between these two, and you can't forget that there's the mini Kaoss pad as well, which also comes in several different shapes and sizes. That one's just an effects unit with only very few synthesizer sounds on it. These two are full-on synthesizers, and that's the difference between a Kaossilator and a Kaoss pad. From the original version to the latest version, it's not that much of a radical jump considering there's 7 or 8 years between the two models, and the ones in between just have slight increments in capability. So the evolution of the Kaossilator family has been a fairly slow, steady sort of progress. To sum up, I'd say that I absolutely love both machines. I'm going to organise a bit of a duet with them now. Here's a rhythm from the original. And we are set to 120 beats per minute. If we press function here, we'll get a tempo reading as well. We're also on 120 a minute. We'll find something that we can play a melody with. There we go. You can hear some interesting chord progressions and chord changes coming together. You don't need two separate Kaossilators to do that. With the looping function on both, you can overlay things, and you can end up with a lot of what I call happy accidents, which is where chords, bass, and drums just suddenly seem to fit together, and you can capture those moments in time and use them in your larger compositions. And that might be a good point to summarize on, because Kaossilators are great things just to have in your possession on your person as you're moving around the world, because they are such great ideas generators. They're very inspiring, very instantaneous, and if ever the word sketchpad was applied to a musical instrument, it would be appropriate in this case. If you're thinking of buying one, don't buy one on specification, because the differences between them might be cosmetically large, but really, practically speaking, they're not massive. Like I said, they're sketch pads. And as I always say to people who message me and ask, should I buy this or should I buy that? I always say, buy the one that makes you smile. Thanks for watching Gear Facts, guys. I hope you enjoyed that comparative demo. Please like, comment, or subscribe. I'd love it if you'd hit me up with some questions. I'm always happy to hear comments and answer questions for viewers, and I'll see you next time on Gear Facts.